It's the Locked On Flyers podcast for Friday, December 27th, your daily dose of Flyers news, analysis, and high quality content that is taking this show on the road, Russ.
Yep, that's where we're going. For me.
You're Locked On Flyers, your daily podcast on the Philadelphia Flyers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hey there, and thanks for making Locked On Flyers your first listen every day. I am Rachel Donner. I've been podcasting about the Flyers, the NHL, and hockey for a decade. I'm here with prospect expert and Flyers credentialed reporter for 19 years, Russ Cohen. Today's episode is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, use the code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. To keep up with our episodes and all the latest Flyers news, you can follow us at Locked On Flyers on all your favorite socials, including Blue Sky. And of course, we're here on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. We're going to get into day one of World Juniors later in the show. We've got a huge back-to-back for the Flyers against the Ducks and the Kings. But I feel like before the Flyers can even play those two games, Russ, they've got some issues
They
to
do.
deal with, right? So we've got this 4 p.m. game against the Ducks on Saturday, 9 p.m. start on Sunday. And, they are not in great shape, I would say, right
No.
now.
No, I'd say mentally they're not in great shape. Defense is bad. Goaltending's been mediocre. It's actually they've taken a pretty good dip.
Yeah, so looking at December, and statistically and numbers wise, they are 3, 6, and 1 in the month so far, which is not great, right?
No.
And I think you mentioned the defense not being great. I think to me that's their biggest problem because it bleeds into the penalty kill issue
Mm-hmm.
that they're having as well. So if you look at just December stats, now they were suddenly scoring goals, right? So we saw the
Right.
uptick. We saw Owen Tippett come into his own. We saw the Cates line start to score more. That is great. They have the 5th best goals per game in the NHL for the month of December thus far at 3.5. Love that. Well above that 3-goal threshold.
Right.
Seems great. Goals against per game in December, 4.7.
That's not good.
No, and, I think that, like I said, it bleeds into the penalty kill, the second worst penalty kill in the NHL for December at 57%. That is brutal.
Yeah, that's brutal. That's and it's been coming. It really isn't just this month. It's been
Right.
dipping for a while now, and they haven't really been able to figure it out.
Yeah, and, I think that that's obviously the biggest project on their plate for this road trip is how do they get back to the fundamentals of defense? And, the first question that I come up with is have other teams figured them out or are the Flyers tired or just not playing their system correctly at the moment?
No, I don't. I think there's a little bit of a figuring out, but I also think they're more. I want to say pedestrian when they don't have Emil Andre in there because who's making big stretch passes, who's rushing the puck up the ice really well. I mean, Drysdale's not doing great at any of that, and so Andre was actually a catalyst for that, and I think kept teams off balance. Once you put Zamula in for Andre, it's easy.
Right, and I think the pairings for the last couple of games especially have been not ideal, right?
No,
I think, York Sandheim makes sense, but I just don't understand where I guess I do understand because I feel like they think they can't put Drysdale with Zamula, even though Sealer Risto makes the most sense
right.
for that next pairing, right? And they feel that they can't drop Drysdale down to the third pairing without giving him somebody like Sealer to work with so that you can at least get Drysdale doing what he does best some of the time and
Right.
not all the time. And so is this whole like blue line structure a way to get Drysdale looking as best as he can, even if he isn't playing as best as he can.
I mean, honestly, and you probably could put Helge Granz in instead of Drysdale, and it would do better in other ways. Drysdale's a negative right now. Like, he does have, a couple good puck rushes a game, but he's not creating any offense. When he is with Zamula, it's brutal, and he's a real negative that way. And it's hard finding a role for him, to be honest.
Yeah, and we're gonna get to talking about some Flyers prospects and World Juniors and when defensive pairings work well, and
Hmm.
like you can see how much better it is when
Yeah.
defensive. Spoiler alert for Team Canada discussion there, but there's doing some really good things that I really feel like the Flyers just don't have the right personnel with the right combinations of
No.
skill sets at the moment, and so just trying to figure out a way to make it work better. I feel like I mean, obviously we're gonna have to see how Andre does with the Phantoms and if he earns the call up back in whatever determination or whatever
Uh,
factors the
did he
Flyers
earn
are
the
taking into
demotion?
it.
We could start with, did he earn the demotion? Like, why should
No.
he have to earn the call up when he didn't earn the demotion? But I get it.
Sure, I agree. I just think that there's
Yeah.
gonna be some sort of determining factor that, I don't know who is deciding at Lehigh Valley or if Torts is gonna watch video and say, "Yeah, he's doing what I need him to now." But
Well, I think there's another thing here too that we have to come to grips with, and that's Nick Seeler's very banged up.
mhm,
And if you look at his minutes, he in the last 5, he's had one good game.
yeah,
Otherwise, he's playing 15 minutes, 14 minutes. One game he played 19 minutes, 17, 11. It's the toll is starting on him, and he's not the same as when he started the season, and that also hurts
that
their
is
defense.
for sure, and Risto isn't either. I
No,
think
he's not either.
he's like, I don't know if he's banged up, but he's certainly slowed down a little bit,
Oh yeah.
and I feel like it's just a dangerous time of the year given this road trip and how important it is to kind of get back on the horse defensively. And I think, again, the penalty kill is part of that. I think they're collapsing too much, and I think they're playing a little bit more aggressive sometimes than they should be with the opponents they have. And I understand they want to do that power kill system, but they gotta take care of business defensively
Yeah,
first,
and that's the
and
thing.
I
They're
think
just
that's
focused
what's
too much.
missing, right?
Yeah, they're focused too much on the power kill when they can't get back and cover it if they don't
Yeah,
score. And
yeah,
and I think that's a problem. With Risto, just looking at his shifts and numbers, I mean, he's just playing too much. He's
mhm,
playing more than he's ever played probably in the last 2 years, maybe 3 years. 2 games over 20 minutes, 1943, 1926. That's a lot for him. And
right.
he's probably hitting a wall.
Yeah, I would say so. I think, this is obviously the biggest issue, but I wanna make sure we talk about some of the other stuff that they gotta work on this road trip.
Sure.
I would say getting Mitchkov going again is really important.
Again, can they not keep him with the same line mates for like a month? I think that would help. I think he's kind of lost his way on the offense, other than on the power play. He knows what to do. Otherwise, he's just not shooting again. Like he's lost. He's
Yeah.
kind of reverted back to that beginning of the year, Michkov.
Yeah, I think he has to some degree. I think he has more individual confidence at 5 on 5 still, I think, but I think that he especially I would say probably because of the language barrier, he needs chemistry with his line
He
mates and to
does.
be able to anticipate because the communication is a little bit more of a challenge. And so it's going to be hard for him to deal with spontaneity from other line mates and then know where to find his open ice, right? Which is what he needs to do in order to make those passes that he likes to and get the shots that he likes to. And I do think that consistency is really important. I hope they kind of put him back with Frost and Tippett, at least to start the road trip, and see how it goes. But that would be my suggestion for the
Yeah,
Flyers.
and if they just leave it, but he's minus 11 in his last 5
Mhm.
games, and last 2 games, 2 shots per game on net. The game before that, 1 shot, and then he had some games where he had 4 shots, but that's because they were playing from behind. And they played
Yeah.
him a lot of minutes in those games because they're playing him from behind. But last 3 games, 12 minutes, 18 minutes, 11:27. Like, what are we doing here? Like, it's just like
Yeah.
either you play him and consistently, like, toying around with his minutes at this point, I don't think helps him. I don't.
No, I don't think so either. And then, of course, like, we have talked about this ad nauseum, but we gotta figure out this goaltending situation, right? With the
Yeah. Well, they're gonna lead to
and
3 for whatever reason, and I'm just assuming Fedotov's never gonna play. Unless there's an
Yeah.
injury, he's just gonna collect the check, and that hurts them on a road trip, on who they can bring on a road trip, because Fedotov can't come in and play, like, defense. He's not gonna skate as a forward. So, we don't even know if he goes on the trip.
Sorry,
I'm
I was
assuming he
just
does. I know.
picturing
I know.
giant Ivan Fedotov skating in his goalie gear as a forward,
Right.
and
It'd be
it's like
great. But it does hurt the whole way the roster is.
no,
And,
I agree. I agree, but it's looming right now, and it weighs heavy, I think, on this
with
roster
no
because of the
transparency in this situation, Danny Briere gets the blame. Like, it's really that simple. Like, it's not Torts' fault. He can only
yeah.
play who's on the roster.
Well,
Now, it's
we will
Torts' fault for
see.
not playing for Fedotov, though. That part's his fault.
Sure, sure, but Briere could lean on him,
Maybe.
especially if they're trying to trade him. They got to play him in order to trade him.
Right. He could do that.
So, at any rate, we do have this back to back against the Ducks and Kings to talk about. We haven't played the Ducks yet, so we're going to talk more about them coming up next. Today's episode is sponsored by PrizePicks. If you love sports, you're going to love PrizePicks. It's the best place to turn your sports knowledge into real money. Whether it's hockey, football, or any other of your favorite sports, PrizePicks makes it easy to get in on the action. And you can now win up to 1,000 times your money on PrizePicks. Plus, this holiday season, they're giving away $30+ million in rewards during Picksmas and offering 2 free picks in December. When your picks hit, PrizePicks makes it easy to cash out and get your money in as fast as 15 minutes. PrizePicks also offers fun weekly promotions like Taco Tuesday, where select player projections are discounted up to 25%. So download the app today, use the code LOCKEDONNHL. You'll get $50 instantly after you play that first $5 lineup. That's right, $50 instantly. PrizePicks, run your game. So on our Monday show, we're obviously going to recap this Ducks and Kings back to back for the Flyers. We're going to get caught up on World Juniors. We'll have our nemesis of the week. Appreciate y'all's patience over the next week with World Juniors. Our schedule is a little wonky, and we might have some episodes come out in the mornings like we are today, but we'll keep you informed as to when the next day's episode is dropping. So the Anaheim Ducks, Russ, this is our first meeting of the season against them. They are currently 7th in the Pacific, 3-6-1 in their last 10. I think, the big story here, obviously, is going to be the narrative around Cutter Gauthier and Jamie Drysdale, right?
Yep. Right now, they're winning the trade. Like, it's that simple.
Yeah, I
Gautier's
think
getting better this year. He's got 14 points. He's starting to pick it up. He had 2 assists a couple of games ago. Like, he's starting to click a little, and Drysdale has yet to click.
Yeah, I would say so. And, one of the things we were worried about with Drysdale with this trade was the injury history that has shown itself to a certain degree thus far. But
He's
Jamie
seemingly
Drysdale,
healthy now, though.
yes, yes. And I would say that he has shown some aspects of his game that represent who we thought he might be and who the Ducks thought he was when they drafted him. But I do think, small sample size again, because Cutter Gauthier just has this one, few months of a season so far.
Correct.
So it's you can't really compare. And again, forward versus defenseman, it's different.
But
But
it's an
people are going
offensive defenseman, so if you want to compare points, you could do that. And yeah, the forward should have a little bit of an edge, but he's more than
right.
double his points.
Yeah, I think that narrative is going to hang over this game
Oh yeah.
for sure. But the upshot is that the Ducks are also still not good overall,
No,
right?
I mean, they're not good. The Flyers are a little better, but what does that mean in the grand scheme of things?
Right. And, in the first segment, I talked about some stats for the month of December. And so I wanted to kind of apples to apples it with
Right.
the Ducks. And so I looked at some of their December only stats because they were playing well, you know, for individual games. And, they did beat Winnipeg recently. And
Mhm.
so they do have really good games under their belt. It's just that more of their games are not so great.
Yeah, because they have a
And
younger guys on defense,
yeah,
and they have Gudis and Truba who are, looking for a certain thing, which again, if the Flyers are
well,
kind of like
Truba's redemption is important to him, right?
right, right. But I'm just saying, if the Flyers are sort of looking for this Cutter Gauthier, we're gonna make you pay thing, this is not the game to do it because they're armed up. Like it's just not gonna make sense.
Right. So in December, the Ducks have a worse power play than the Flyers, but the Ducks also have the sixth best in the NHL shots per game in the NHL. And so, you look at the Flyers are at 26.9 shots per game for December. Ducks are at 29.3. So a little significant difference between the two, but the Flyers are much better at preventing shots on goal. So the Flyers allow 24.8 shots per game and the Ducks allow 30.1. So I feel like there's some oil and water
Yeah,
situation here and like which team is going to prevail in terms of the defense. And I think, to our point in the first segment, the Flyers defense has to show up here is the upshot.
yeah, yeah. I think so. I mean, I'm looking, and the Flyers have a losing record against the West. They seem to have, they got a break with San Jose, fine, but they're not doing great against the West. They look different against the West,
Yep.
and so when you are talking about goals, uh, goals against 7, 4, 4, 5.
Yep.
Those are the bad ones. There's a few. There's one game where they only gave up one goal, and then the next best is 2, and then 3, and then 3, and then it goes up from there. And so,
Right. Well,
there-
that's where you get that 4.7
yeah,
average for the month,
yeah,
right?
yeah. No, but this is against the West. I'm doing it just against the
Okay.
West, so it's not for the month. So they're consistently almost that same number for December against the West too.
Yeah.
So you look at this game and you'd say it's likely a high scoring game.
Yeah, I would say so. And probably similarly for the other game against the Kings that we
The
have.
Kings is a worrisome game. Like that one,
Yeah.
yeah. I'm not sure. That's the one where they gave up 7.
Yep.
I don't know how you plug up that hole.
Right. And the Kings play at home, especially such a button down game.
Yes.
Like I've been to so many games
They'll try
in
and win that
LA.
game 3-1. They will.
Yeah. Yeah. That's exactly how those games go at whatever the Staples Center is being called now that I refuse to
Crypto? No, I don't
call.
know. I don't even know.
Yeah. But especially after I think is going to be a very physically demanding game
Yeah.
against the Ducks, to
Yeah.
have to go and play the Kings the next day is going to be very difficult. And that's why this road trip is such a challenge, right?
It
Because
is.
they have so many things to get their house in order and like no time to do it in, no rest to
Well, I
do
mean,
it
they do
in.
have time. I mean, we don't know exactly when they hit the West, but they should have a day or 2 to practice. So there is
They
time.
should. Yes, they should. But, in terms of in between games and adjustments, that's where it gets a little difficult here. But yeah, I really think they have to get off on the right foot in this Ducks game and kind of overcome some of the physicality that the Ducks are going to throw. Like Truba is just going to be a wrecking ball
Yeah.
in this game for sure because he has all that experience against the Flyers from his time with the Rangers that he's like, and Gudish knows how to play against the Flyers too. So
Yep.
I think that it's just going to be a real challenge for the Flyers, I think defensively, and I think that they're going to have to really look at those forward lines and make sure that they're setting things up so that they're getting the best matchups they can, considering that they're on the road.
Yeah, this is a winnable game, but lately, when they're playing teams like this, like Detroit comes to mind. They're that similar kind of team. They try and
Right.
they try and trade chances. They try and make it a track meet. And I don't think they could be. I don't think they could be in a track meet with Anaheim. I think that plays into their hands. I think they should try and play the different style here that they played the entire month of
Yeah.
December. And I know that I saw Jackie Spiegel put up one practice from Anaheim. So they definitely had one practice, and you should be able to cure things in a practice. And if you can't, then you got other problems anyhow.
Yeah, I would say so. But yeah, a tough weekend ahead for the Flyers. In the meantime, we're looking at day one of World Juniors in the books, and there's some really exciting things that happen, some predictable things that happen, but more importantly, we got to look at those Flyers prospects. We're going to do that coming up next.
Did Rocket Money help you find any subscriptions you forgot about or that you were paying for twice? That definitely happened to me. I had a few subscriptions that I didn't even realize I was still paying for, and Rocket Money made it so easy to track them all down. It's like having a personal assistant for your finances. Rocket Money is a personal finance app that helps you find and cancel your unwanted subscriptions, monitors your spending, and helps lower your bills so you can grow your savings. It brings everything together in one place, whether it's subscriptions, your spending habits, or even the goals you want to hit this year. Rocket Money has over 5 million users and has saved a total of 500 million in canceled subscriptions, saving members up to $740 a year when using all the app's premium features, including the subscription tracker to help you cancel those services you no longer use, cancel those unwanted subscriptions, and reach your financial goals faster. With Rocket Money, go to rocketmoney.com/lockedon today. That's rocketmoney.com/lockedon, rocketmoney.com/lockedon.
All right, Russ. So, World Juniors day one. Now, I think the biggest question out there is why didn't Carson Bjarnason make the final cut here for Team
It's a
Canada,
mystery.
right?
We don't know. I don't know. I have no intel on this. Maybe I'll get some when I get there, but right now I'm clueless. I was surprised when he wasn't registered, and now I don't know.
Yeah, it's been a little weird. What wasn't weird is why Carter George got the number
Right.
one spot after watching that game
Yeah, he
against
had a really good
Finland.
game.
Oh, tremendous game, especially in the third period,
Yeah.
especially when Canada was on the penalty kill, made some absolutely tremendous saves. But it was a little bit weird to see Bjarnason not even on the sheet, right?
It was weird to not see him on the sheet, and I don't have an explanation for it.
Well, hopefully we will get one in the next day or so, and we'll get to talk about it on the show. That Canada versus Finland game, obviously for us, was the most important game.
Right.
Given now we had 5 prospects in the tournament, now it seems like 3, and all 3 of them were in that game. So
Yep.
Oliver Bonk was on the second pairing with Schaefer as expected. We talked about Matthew Schaefer in our
Mhm.
preview, but what a tremendous game, and that kid is absolutely dynamic.
Yeah, he's really good. I mean, I still would take James Higgins over him. We'll talk about him later, but Shaver played a terrific game. I mean, he deserved
Yeah,
that empty net goal. He played
yep,
really good defense. He moves the puck well. He's pretty calm for a 17-year-old. I think there were a couple of hiccups, but mostly a great game. And because Finland can really force errors, like
yeah,
they're good at that. They didn't provide much offense early, Finland, other than the Ruohonen, shorthanded chance. Their offense was
right.
stagnant for a while.
Yeah, it was, but they certainly, I thought, like, battened down the hatches defensively
They did.
against Canada,
They did.
and I think they played them very well.
They held them off
Bonk
as long as they could. That's really what it was.
exactly, exactly. Bonk, I thought, to our earlier point about defensive pairings and roles, I we talked about it in the preview that he was gonna have to be the stay-at-home defenseman with a guy like Schaefer as his D
Yes.
partner, and I think that held true for this game. I think that except for when Bonk was on the power play, where you
Right. He
got
was
to
good on the
see
power
him.
play.
Yeah, he
Mostly. I mean, the
really
one
was.
puck went over his stick, but he was good. I liked his power play. But we do have to talk about the thing that Dave Cameron probably hated. Flyers fans could say what they want because, like, he's a Flyers pick, but he knew he was offsides when he shot the puck in the net. And Dave Cameron doesn't like stuff like that. I've
Right.
interviewed Dave Cameron. He's a very traditional kind of hockey coach. He probably spoke to him about that because that is kind of a bad form move.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with that. I really think just in terms of his overall game, you saw him do more of quote unquote his thing when he was
Yeah,
on
no
the power
question.
play.
Yeah.
And then 5 on 5, he was just, the defense guy and let
Yes.
Schaefer kind of run with it in
Yeah,
that
and his
pairing.
skating looked great. No, he had a terrific
Mhm.
game. No question
I
about it.
thought so too. Jet Luchenko, I thought, had a
It was a
more
weird game.
interesting. It
Yeah,
was
it was a weird
yeah, it
game.
was very weird. A little over 15 minutes of time on ice. We knew as 3C, his ice time wasn't gonna be huge, so that seems about
Right.
right for the 3C, especially
Yeah, the
again.
usage is fine.
Yeah, with how tight Finland was playing that game, Canada played their top lines a lot more than maybe they would have if
Mhm.
Finland hadn't been playing such a strong defensive game, because you saw as the game progressed and Canada was pulling away a little bit, the bottom 6 got more ice time in the 3rd
Right,
period than they
right.
did in the first 2 periods of the game. He was 50% on the face-off dot. He had 1 shot on goal and 1 penalty in the game, and I
And a
thought he had.
turnover, a bad turnover.
Yeah, and a bad turnover. So, I thought that it was a very mixed game for him.
It was a mixed game. Like, and the turnover was interesting because he showed his speed where he could get the puck and get down the ice, but then he did this blind pass that Finland was just waiting on, and they just took the puck the other way. They're lucky it didn't go in the other, go in the net, because sometimes that's what happens on a play like that. So he's kind of have to reel it in. This isn't an OHL game. This is uh, a
Yeah,
different kind of role for him, and one play like that can lose you a game. Like, it's hard to come back sometimes against some of these teams. You do that against the US on New Year's Eve, it's going in the net, as an example.
right.
So he's got to reel it in a little bit. Like I said, he didn't have a bad game, but it was a weird game.
Yeah, Heikki Ruohonen, I thought, had a solid game.
Solid game.
I Yeah, I don't know that he stood out particularly,
Just on that one play.
but just on that one play where he had a breakaway chance, but I did think he did really well on some board battles and tying up
Mhm.
the puck. Um, but I think that, given like where he falls in the continuum, I thought it was a good game for him and kind of where you'd expect given where he is in the lineup there.
Yeah, I think it's a good showing for him. I think that he could get better as the series goes on. We'll see.
Yeah, I think so. I think Sweden versus Slovakia, I thought Axel Sandin Pellikka to me was the
Yeah, he
standout
was the big
player in
star in
that
that one.
game. 3 goals and an assist for Sweden. It was a pretty dominant game, although it wasn't to start off with, but it was just one of those things where Sweden just takes over eventually,
We
and then
talked
what are you
about that,
gonna
and they're
do?
going to be doing this,
Yeah.
yeah, for a lot of games.
Yeah. What was your take on the USA versus Germany game? Because to me, I feel like allowing 4 goals in that game is a little bit of a worry. Even though they did score 10 in that game, I feel like they could have been a little bit more sound defensively.
I wasn't as worried. Like, I've seen Augustine play enough where I'm like, I think his inactivity hurt him because they were dominating
Mhm.
at times so much that he's facing like one shot in 10 minutes, and
Right.
I do think that played a part in it. I do. I think he probably would have given up 2 or 3 in this one. Germany is pretty good offense. They do,
Right.
and so and I'm forgetting the was it Lewandowski? He looks like a
Think
player.
so.
Yeah, he looks like a
Yeah.
player. So there's that. But look, everybody could talk about Matthew Schaefer, and James Higgins was dominant. He had 4 points.
Yep.
Nobody wants to talk about Cole Hudson and his 5 points, but he had 5 points.
Well,
No,
they
I mean, it's
do,
true.
I
I
think.
mean, no, I don't think they do. I mean, here's why I say that. I get it. Schaefer's going to be a high draft pick. He's 17. Everybody goes crazy when somebody's a little younger. Gavin McKenna was the best player in the tournament yesterday. But
Uh-huh.
James Higgins was the next best player. And Cole Hudson wasn't far behind. But the problem with Cole Hudson is everybody's like, well, what's he going to do in the NHL? Well, it doesn't matter. It's what he does in the World Juniors, and he had 5 points, and he was great.
Right.
I think that's
He
the part
was.
that everybody has to kind of get in the mirror there and say, this guy's a real weapon.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. I thought he had a phenomenal game,
And
and
Leonard was solid too. Leonard's hard to cover, man.
yeah,
And Perot, that
yeah,
whole line, Leonard, Perot, Higgins. When I posted online that I felt that is the best line in the tournament, I got pushback from Canadians, which I expected. But how do you argue it? They had 7 points.
I know. I know. And that's the thing is like it's very weird the broadcast situation in the
Oh yeah,
States because they like pull the Canadian broadcast for
yeah,
most of it and then they only have American broadcasters for Team USA. And
right.
so you get a very skewed
You
picture
do
from
on
the
both
studio
sides.
people.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, there's no neutrality anywhere to be found in the coverage
no.
of World Juniors. So it's hard to gauge that sometimes in terms of what the reality of what's
Well,
being
that's why I'm trying
perceived.
to be fair. I heard nothing
Yeah,
about Cole Hudson really,
yeah.
it was all about the
Well,
top players and the top players for the draft. But this is a tournament. Like these other guys get their moment too.
Well, the next game for Team Finland and Heikki Ruohonen is today versus Germany at 3:30 Eastern. Next game for Canada is Saturday against Latvia at 5:30 Eastern. So we will, of course, be watching those games. And as we head into next week, we're going to see the Sharks, we're going to see Vegas and the Leafs as well as more World Juniors action. So, a lot to look forward to on the show next week. And speaking of that Monday show, it is going to drop on Monday morning so that we can make sure to cover Flyers versus Kings
Right.
and Canada versus Germany, which is going to be a huge game for our Flyers prospects as well. As a reminder, we always want to hear from you. You can let us know your questions on any of our socials at Locked On Flyers. You can email us at lockedonflyers@gmail or comment on our YouTube channel. I'm Rachel. I'm on Blue Sky and Twitter at rmiriam. That's RMIRIAM.
I'm Russ. I'm at Sportsology on those same socials. SPORTSOLOGY.
Thanks for making Locked On Flyers your first listen today. For your next listen, find Locked On Fantasy Hockey. Become a fantasy hockey expert. Get the edge over your league mates with daily tips from Steal and Flip. Find Locked On Fantasy Hockey on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. Have a great weekend, everyone.